Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. This is not normally the time of year where we talk about maple sugaring. Our programs on Vermont maple usually air during the height of the sugaring season from late winter through spring. But today is an exception. Our focus is maple, and more specifically, we're going to learn about Maplerama 2017. Joining me is UVM Extension Maple Specialist Mark Isselhart, who is one of the coordinators of Maplerama. Great to see you again.
Thanks for having me.
What is Maplerama?
So Maplerama is actually in its 52nd year. It's a traditional tour of sugar houses, is really the heart of it. And each county in Vermont that will host will try to highlight all the different aspects of maple in their county. So people will take buses around to lots of different sugaring operations, including some other non-maple tour stops. And really the idea is to see how maple is done in that county, highlight producers of various sizes.
So when and where is Maplerama this year?
It's in Lamoille County this year, and the headquarters, if you will, is at the VFW in Hyde Park. There'll be a big tent set up, and that's where registration is. That's where the tours leave from. It's August 3rd through the 5th, and really the 3rd is the registration day, kind of welcoming that evening. Then the core of it will be on Friday and Saturday.
And so do you have to be a large-scale maple producer to participate?
Absolutely not. Yeah, people who aren't even producers will attend, especially people who are maybe thinking about getting into maple but aren't really sure how to start. This is a great way in one weekend or 2 day, day and a half period to go and see lots of different operations, see how their sugar houses are set up, how they choose to do it, and learn from their successes and learn from mistakes as well.
Now, I guess Lamoille County is a great example of how the industry in Vermont is changing.
Sure. Lamoille County is kind of a microcosm for where Vermont maple has come from. The last time Lamoille County hosted was 2005, and it was estimated that about 100,000 trees were being tapped at that time. Fast forward to 2017, the estimates are around 450,000 taps. So there's been a tremendous growth in maple, and it hasn't all come from the really largest operations, although there are some very large places, operations in Lamoille County. There are still lots of medium and small-sized operations.
What are some of the maple operations that are going to be toured on this year's Maplerama?
Well, like I said, it'll be everything from producers with about 100 taps to people with as many as 85 and 90,000 taps. One of the operations is called RUNAMOK maple. They're on the western slopes of Mount Mansfield. This is a operation that taps around 85,000 trees, and they produce with steam powered. They actually don't use a traditional evaporator. They use steam to evaporate. And they also have a new product, or sort of an emerging branch of the market, which is sort of flavor infused maple. Really trying to open up maple beyond the traditional breakfast things that people associate with maple. So they're really trying to market a product with lots of different flavors.
I'll be interested to taste some of that. That's kind of intriguing.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, Maplerama goes beyond just maple, though.
It does. One of the things that we're doing is looking at forestry aspects, sustainable management of the woods, and so there'll be an opportunity for producers to attend a full day forestry clinic hosted by county foresters. So they'll learn everything from removing invasive species to identifying diseased trees, how to mark trees for thinning to promote growth. It'll be a really detailed workshop.
Now, I know one of the pests that has been plaguing some places across Vermont in the past year and this year is the forest tent caterpillar.
Right. Anyone who has curiosity about entomology, they'll be able to see firsthand the impact of this native pest. Forest tent caterpillar has been sort of an erupted outbreak in the past 2 years in Lamoille County. It's one of the hot spots, if you will, for defoliation. And some of the producers who are on the tours were defoliated last year, chose to spray over this past early spring or late spring, I should say, and are seeing the benefits of that spraying. So producers who are concerned about that will actually get to see firsthand the impacts of doing this sort of proactive spraying with a natural control measure, which can help reduce defoliation.
What are some of the other stops along the tour?
Well, there are going to be there's a dairy operation that people can check out. Let's see, what else do we have on the?
We have ELMORE Sugar House.
Right. So ELMORE Sugar House is an operation that really fits right in that middle ground as far as operations, where there's a little bit of trucking of sap. There's sap that goes right into the sugar house. Really nice traditional operation with a nice way to see everything in a pretty compact area.
I know you have another picture of Butternut, I guess?
Yeah, so Butternut Mountain Farm is a combination of a sugaring operation, but also a very modern, high-tech packaging of maple syrup. Butternut Mountain Farm now purchases over 50% of all Vermont syrup made, and that's in Morrisville. It's a really interesting operation. It's run by David Marvin and family, as well as many others. Employs a lot of people in Lamoille County, and that syrup goes all over the world. It's a pretty exciting tour stop. People get to see, as you see, the whole conveyor belt and assembly line. It's a very modern and innovative operation that tries to get maple in lots of houses all over the world.
Because I guess for a lot of producers, that's kind of nice. You produce your syrup, but then you don't have to go to the headache of trying to bottle it and market it. Right.
So Butternut purchases bulk syrup from over 350 producers around the state, and most of Vermont, the crop is sold in bulk and then is packed by a few different packers and marketed across the globe.
Now there's also something called Sugar Mountain Electric Evaporator.
Yeah, so that's an interesting tour stop. It's the one of two electric evaporators in the state. It kind of looks like a spaceship if you see there.
It does.
And that's a pretty innovative operation. It's up in Waterville, and producers who are curious about this newer technology can check that out firsthand. It's all electric. There's one interesting thing is there's very little steam that comes out of it. That steam, the heat in the steam gets almost completely converted to heat and to help with the evaporation process. So it's very efficient. There's a cold stream of water that comes out of that evaporator,
really?
As well as the pure maple syrup.
So now, you mentioned earlier that Maplerama rotates from county to county each year, and this year it's in Lamoille County, and there's definitely sort of an economic boost to host this event.
It does help, yeah, for sure. You have 150 to perhaps 200 people coming, staying in the area, and checking out the different attractions and restaurants and that sort of thing. Although the days are pretty full, it's all-day tours, so people get to see a lot of the county. And
do you have people who aren't in the maple industry come and participate?
Definitely, yeah. And we've had, last year I think there were some food writers who were just curious about maple who hopped on the bus and and got to see what it's like. And it's the people who host, people who open up their operations for people, really take a lot of time to clean and get everything spick and span and really try to welcome and show off their operation. So you learn a lot when you visit these spots. Would you say that
as far as maple industry itself, bigger's always better?
No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
There is some efficiency to be had when you get to a certain size, but there are plenty of people who do it for the love of the product. I think the small operations benefit the industry as well because it's a little bit more approachable, perhaps. But the big operations are needed for sure to supply all the demand that is now. It's really a global product at this point.
How's that changed, do you think, the outlook of Vermont maple, knowing that these products now are desired across the globe, not just necessarily in the Northeast or across the country?
I would say it's positive. And then there's been just shy of double-digit growth for the last 5 years in maple. The market is really growing, and I think I won't say the sky's the limit, but I think that it's definitely a positive outlook. I think technology has helped make it more efficient, and just telling the story of what maple is. It's a single ingredient product, and I think consumers are more and more interested in very, pure, less processed ingredients.
And maple's finding its way into a lot of other foods as well, because there's a trade show as part of Maplerama.
There is, and the trade show is a little bit more focused towards producers, so all the major manufacturers will be there with their latest technology. People can look at some of the equipment, evaporators, ROs, vacuum pumps. There will be also people showing the latest in packaging, bottles and containers and things like that. So it's a nice collection of vendors to check out.
Any other tour stops that you want to highlight?
Let's see, what else do we have? Well, we have UVM Extension's own George Cook will be one of the tour stops, and he's on the more modest size of operation. I think George has about 125 taps, but it is a great example of what you can do with the resource on your property. You don't have to have 1,000 acres and a huge bank account to get into maple. It's a really exciting time, and George is going to talk about some of the newer advances with tubing, some of the smaller diameter tubing that small producers can use to see some of the production levels achievable by very high technology, but with a very low cost approach.
Okay, and there's something else too. I think of a couple more pictures.
What's that? Oh yeah, so DURIVAGE maple is an example of a producer who just sells sap. So if you think of maple as being all this action going on in the woods, all the forest management, the tapping, all the tubing, that's one part of maple. Then you have a whole part that goes on in the sugar house. Well, some people, if they're getting into maple, might decide to only sell sap and not deal with anything about boiling it down. And there are lots of producers who are willing to buy sap. So if, for instance, you have trees that are tappable and makes sense to just get into it for selling sap, people are definitely doing that, and you can make some money that way.
Interesting. Why do you think it's important to have this Maplerama event every year?
Well, for one thing, for if you are in maple, if you are a producer, the sugaring season is a time when you're typically chained to your operation.
Right.
You can't really get out and see what's going on. It's a great way. It's kind of legalized snooping. You can go around, you can see how other people do it. You can learn from, like I said, learn from things that didn't go so well,
right.
Learn from things that are really good. And producers are very open. In a way, producers are competitors, but just like in a lot of agriculture, it's difficult enough without, really bare-knuckle competition. So
right.
They're very welcoming, and you can learn a lot. Even if the sap isn't running and the evaporator isn't going, sometimes it can be one of the easier times to learn because everything's a little bit calmer, not quite as frantic. So that's for people who are already producers. If you're thinking about getting in, maybe you're designing your sugar house now, it's a great way to bring a tape measure, bring a camera, bring a notebook, and think about asking questions of producers. Why do you do it this way? What would you have done differently? It can really help.
Can save you a lot of time and money.
Sure can. Yeah, for sure.
As we noted at the beginning of the program, the Maplerama 2017 tours are this Friday and Saturday, August 4th and 5th. Is it too late to sign up?
Definitely not. Nope. You can sign up pretty much right until the day of, and we encourage people to register now. Obviously, it's right around the corner, but it'll really help with understanding what numbers to expect and making sure there's room on the buses and all that.
Okay, and once again, this event is for who?
It's really for anyone who has any curiosity whatsoever in maple. Largely, it'll be producers, but there are plenty of people who have never tapped a tree before that are still coming and learning. It's a pretty affordable, outing, and you get to see a lot of the state within Lamoille County and see a lot of interesting spots.
Okay. Well, that's our program for today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Sure, no problem.
We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.